My name is Ethan Cole. I'm 32 years old. 5 years ago, 3 days before Thanksgiving, my mother called and said 7 words that ended any illusion I had left about family. Don't come home this year. Your sister doesn't want drama. No explanation. No apology. Just a decision that erased 27 years of trying to fit into a place that was never mine. I remember standing in my apartment in Chicago, phone still in my hand, listening to the silence after she hung up. I'd already bought the ticket, non-refundable, didn't matter. I spent that Thanksgiving alone at a restaurant, sitting 2 feet away from a table full of people who actually wanted each other there. I didn't know it then, but the strangers at that table would become my family. And 5 years later, at my wedding, they would be introduced as my parents. Not metaphorically, not emotionally, legally, while my biological parents stood in the back, uninvited, watching it happen in real time. I didn't plan it that way, but looking back, it might have been inevitable. Before I tell you what happened next, take a second. If this story hits anywhere close to home, if you've ever been pushed out, overlooked, or made to feel like you were the problem, just for asking to be treated fairly, go ahead and hit like and subscribe. It helps more people find stories like this. And I'm curious, where are you watching from? And what time is it there right now? Drop it in the comments. I read more of them than you'd think. Alright, let me take you back to the call that started all of this. I remember exactly where I was when the call came in, November 21st, 3 days before Thanksgiving. I was in my studio apartment in Chicago, halfway through packing. A small suitcase on the bed, a checklist on the counter, a cheap candle burning to make the place feel less empty than it actually was. I'd already booked my flight back home, non-refundable. My mom's name showed up on my phone. I picked up on the second ring. "Hey," I said. I was just about to Ethan. Her voice cut straight through, flat, no warmth. "I need to tell you something." That tone never meant anything good. I stopped moving. "What's wrong? Is Dad okay? Your father's fine." A pause, then, "Don't come home this year." I didn't respond right away. I thought maybe I'd heard her wrong. "What, your sister doesn't want drama," she said. "She's pregnant again. She doesn't need the stress." I tightened my grip on the phone. "What drama? You know how you get." That was it. No specifics. No examples, just a label I'd been carrying for years. "I haven't even talked to her in months," I said. "Exactly," my mom replied. "Let's keep it that way." I looked out the window. Snow was starting to fall, slow and steady, covering the street like nothing had happened. "I already bought my ticket," I said. "Then get a refund?" Her tone didn't change. "Your sister comes first, right now. You understand that." There was nothing to negotiate. The line went dead a second later. I stood there for a while, phone still in my hand, listening to the quiet settle back into the room. It wasn't new. It just wasn't deniable anymore. I wish I could say that call came out of nowhere. It didn't. It just made something permanent that had always been there. I sat down on the edge of the bed, staring at the suitcase I didn't need anymore. And the memories came back the way they always did, quiet. Specific. Impossible to argue with. My 16th birthday. Nothing big. Just 3 friends. A bowling lane. A cake my mom said she'd order. I'd planned it for weeks. That morning, my sister called crying. Something about failing an exam. She needed support. The party was canceled before noon. "Don't make this about you," my mom said. "She needs us more right now. We never rescheduled." A few years later, college graduation. I worked for that. Late nights, part-time jobs, everything stacked just to get across that stage with honors. I remember walking out, scanning the crowd, 2 empty seats. They showed up almost 2 hours late. Her appointment couldn't be moved. My dad told me. You understand? I did. I always did. That was the pattern. Something happened with her. Everything shifted. Something happened with me. It could wait. Or it didn't matter. At some point. I stopped asking. It was easier that way. Less friction, less noise. I learned to keep things short. Keep reactions smaller. Don't push, don't question, don't expect. Because every time I did, it turned into the same conversation. "You're too sensitive. You make everything a problem. Why can't you just let things go?" So I did. I let it all go. Or at least I acted like I did. Sitting there in that apartment at 27, ticket in my hand. I finally saw it clearly. There wasn't a version of me that fixed this. There wasn't a smaller version that would suddenly be enough. I'd been adjusting for years. The outcome never changed. I called my dad. I don't know why. Maybe habit. Maybe some part of me still thought he'd say something different if I asked him directly. The phone rang a few times before he picked up. "Hey," he said, "careful." Like he already knew what this was about. "Did Mom talk to you?" I asked. A pause. I could hear a TV in the background. Probably a game. Yeah, he said. She mentioned it. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. And you're okay with that? Another pause. You know how your mother is? He said. That wasn't an answer. So I'm just not coming home, I asked. That's the plan? It's not like that, he said. Then what is it? He didn't respond right away. I could picture him sitting there, leaning back, one hand on his forehead, waiting for this to pass without him having to choose anything. Do you want me there? I asked. That was the question. Simple, direct. 5 seconds passed, then 10. I think it's better if you listen to your mother this year. That was it. No explanation. No pushback. No hesitation once he said it. Just a decision. Something in me shut down. Not anger. Not even disappointment. Just quiet. Okay, I said. Ethan, don't. I said okay. I hung up before he could finish. He didn't call back. I stood there for a minute, staring at nothing, letting it settle into place. He had a chance to say one thing, just one, and he didn't. He never did. That was the part I couldn't ignore anymore. Not what he said, what he didn't. Thanksgiving morning came in quiet, gray sky, cold air pressing against the windows. I woke up to footsteps above me, my upstairs neighbor's family arriving. Doors opening, voices overlapping, kids running down the hallway like they'd been waiting all year for this. I stayed in bed longer than I needed to. No messages on my phone, no calls, no happy Thanksgiving, nothing. Around 11, I got up, made coffee, and stood by the window. Snow had started again, light but steady, covering the street in a clean layer that didn't match how the day felt. For a while, I just stood there. Then I made the mistake of opening Instagram. My sister had posted a full table, my parents, her husband, their kid in some oversized sweater, everyone leaning in, smiling like nothing was missing. Caption, grateful for the people who matter most. I zoomed in without thinking, counted the chairs. 5, no empty seat. They didn't just leave me out, they closed the space. I locked my phone and set it down harder than I meant to, for a minute. I considered staying in, ordering something, letting the day pass the way it wanted to. That would have been easy, predictable, but something about that didn't sit right. I wasn't going to spend the whole day proving them right. I got dressed, grabbed my coat. If I was going to eat alone, I wasn't doing it in the dark. The city was quieter than usual, most places closed, streets half empty, everyone already where they were supposed to be. It took a while, but I found a place still open. Old school restaurant, warm lights, full tables when I walked in. The hostess looked at me for half a second longer than necessary. Just one, she asked. Yeah, she led me to a small table near the back, close enough to other people that I couldn't ignore them, far enough that I didn't belong to any of it. I sat down, picked up the menu, and pretended this was a choice. Around me, conversations overlapped. Laughter, glasses clinking, people passing plates without asking. Easy, familiar. The kind of thing you don't notice until you don't have it. My food came out. It looked right, smelled right, didn't matter. I ate a few bites, then stopped. Across from me, an empty chair, for a long time. That's what I'd been working toward. A place at the table. Now, I was sitting there, looking at it, realizing something I should have figured out years ago. There was never going to be a seat for me, not there. I sat there longer than I needed to, fork in my hand, plate barely touched, noise all around me, none of it landing. At some point, I stopped pretending I was eating. I just sat there, watched. 3 tables over, a family had pushed everything together, too many people for one space. But no one seemed to care. They passed dishes without asking, talked over each other without apologizing, laughed like it wasn't something they had to think about. 3 generations. Easy. An older couple at the center, a man and woman in their 60s. Maybe, the kind of presence that held everything together without saying much. A younger couple beside them, 2 kids, both under 10, arguing about something that didn't matter, and across from them, someone around my age, late 20s, maybe early 30s, relaxed, comfortable, like he'd never had to question whether he belonged there. I looked away after a few seconds, didn't feel like something I should be watching. My attention dropped back to the table. Empty glass, half a plate, 1 chair across from me that wasn't going to be filled. That's when I heard it. You don't have to do that, you know? I looked up. The older woman from that table was standing beside me. Gray hair, steady eyes, the kind of expression that didn't miss much. Do what I asked. Sit there pretending you're okay, she said. Not sharp, not soft either, just direct. I glanced down at my plate. I'm fine. She nodded once, Like she'd heard that before. Of course you are. A second passed. Then she looked back toward her table, then at me again. No one should be sitting alone on a day like this, she said. Come join us. I shook my head automatically. I'm good. I don't want to interrupt. You're not interrupting, she said. I'm inviting. There wasn't any hesitation in her voice, just certainty. From the table, the older man caught my eye and lifted his glass slightly. Trust me, he said, loud enough to carry. You'd be doing us a favor. She doesn't take no for an answer. A few people at the table laughed. The guy around my age leaned back in his chair, looking over. He's right, he said. You either walk over now, or she'll come drag you herself. I let out a short breath, not quite a laugh. I looked at my table again, then back at theirs, plates being passed, someone making space without being asked, no one checking whether it made sense. They'd already decided I didn't belong at my own table. That part was clear, but this one had a seat open. All right, I said, standing up. Just for a minute. Good, the woman said, already turning back. That's all it takes. I followed her over. Someone pulled out a chair before I got there. Another handed me a glass. No questions, no pause, just space. Richard, the older man said, reaching out his hand. This is my wife, Helen, Ethan, I said, shaking it. Introductions moved around the table. Names I didn't catch. Faces I didn't know. Didn't matter. Within a minute, I wasn't sitting alone anymore, and for the first time that day, I didn't feel like I had to explain why. I didn't stay long that first night. An hour, maybe a little more, long enough to finish a real meal. Long enough to get pulled into conversations I didn't expect to be part of. Long enough that leaving felt noticeable. They didn't push anything. No questions I didn't want to answer. No forced sympathy. Just normal conversation. Like I'd been there before. When the check came, I reached for my wallet. Richard waved it off without looking at me next time, he said. I didn't argue. At the door, Helen handed me a small card. Sunday dinners, she said. We do them every week. You're welcome to stop by. I nodded. I appreciate it. I didn't plan on going. It felt like too much, too fast. But she called a few days later anyway. Didn't ask questions. Just checked in. So I showed up the next Sunday, then the one after that. It didn't change all at once. It was small things. A seat that was always there without being saved. A plate handed to me before I asked. Someone remembering what I did for work. Someone else asking how the week went and actually waiting for the answer. No one treated me like I was temporary. No one made me earn anything. Over time, I stopped keeping track of how long I stayed. Stopped thinking about whether I should be there. It just became part of the week. Richard taught me how to play chess. I lost every game. Helen showed me how she made pie from scratch. Said it wasn't about the recipe. Said it was about patience. The kids started talking to me like I'd always been around. And Claire, Richard, and Helen's youngest was just there. Easy to talk to. Didn't fill silence just to fill it. Sat next to me without making it a thing. We argued about movies. Sent each other things during the week. Nothing forced. Nothing rushed. It didn't feel like something new starting. It felt like something steady building. I didn't hear from my family once. No calls, no messages. At some point, I stopped noticing. Stopped. Not because it didn't matter, because for the first time, I wasn't waiting for it. It didn't happen all at once. There wasn't a moment where things suddenly shifted, or a line we crossed that changed everything overnight. With Claire, it built the same way everything else with that family did. Slow, consistent, uncomplicated. We were already used to each other, sitting next to each other at dinner. Texting during the week, showing up to the same place without having to ask if the other would be there. At some point, it stopped being coincidence. I started noticing the details. She'd bring an extra coffee when she knew I'd had a long week. I'd fix things around her place without making a point of it. We didn't talk about it, we just did it. No pressure, no expectation, just presence. One night, after dinner, we stayed behind while everyone else cleared out. Dishes stacked, lights dimmed, quiet in a way that didn't feel empty. You ever think about how weird this is, she asked. What part that a year ago? You were a stranger. I leaned back in the chair. Still kind of am. She shook her head slightly. Not really. That was it. No big conversation, no labels. Just a shift that didn't need explaining. 2 years after that first Thanksgiving. I asked her to go back to the same restaurant, same table, if they had it. She noticed as soon as we sat down. Full circle, she said. Something like that. I didn't overthink it, didn't rehearse anything. I reached into my jacket, set the box on the table, and looked at her. I'm not good at speeches, I said. You know that. She smiled. Yeah, I'm not going anywhere, I added. And I don't want to do any of this without you. That was enough. I opened the box. She didn't hesitate. Okay, she said. No pause, no doubt, just certainty. I put the ring on her finger. Around us, a few people noticed. Someone clapped. Someone else said something I didn't catch. Didn't matter. Claire looked at me like this had always been the direction we were heading, like nothing about it was surprising. Just right, from across the room, I caught a glimpse of Richard and Helen at another table, watching, already smiling. Planning the wedding was straightforward. Venue, food, guest list, timing. None of that was the problem. The problem was a single line on the invitation. Parents of the groom. I sat at the Morrison dining table one night, staring at the sample print Helen had left in front of me. Claire was upstairs on a call. Richard was watching something in the other room. It was quiet. Too quiet for something that should have been simple. I could have left it blank, could have avoided it entirely, but that felt like pretending something wasn't missing, and it was. Helen walked in, set a cup of coffee next to me, and took one look at the paper. That line, she said. Yeah. She sat down across from me. Didn't rush it. Do you want to talk about it? She asked. I shrugged. Not really. She nodded. Let the silence sit for a few seconds. There's something I mentioned to you before, she said, a while back, about legal recognition. I looked up. Adoption, she added. Adult adoption. I didn't respond right away. I knew what the word meant. I just hadn't connected it to myself. It's a legal process, she continued. Two consenting adults. It establishes a parent-child relationship in every formal sense. Name, documents, next of kin, everything. I leaned back in the chair, thinking it through. You're serious, I said. I wouldn't bring it up if I wasn't. No pressure in her voice, no expectation, just an option. I looked at her, then at the house around me, the table I'd been sitting at every Sunday, the place where no one had ever asked me to justify being there. You and Richard would actually... I started. She didn't let me finish. We already do, she said. Simple, like it wasn't a question. Something in my chest tightened, then settled. Not overwhelming, just clear. Okay, I said. That was it. No speech, no build-up, just a decision. The process took a few months. Paperwork, court date, signatures. Nothing complicated with Helen guiding it. The day it was finalized, the judge looked at me, then at them, and signed the order without ceremony. That was all it took. On paper, everything changed. In reality, it already had. When the invitations were printed, the line wasn't empty anymore. Parents of the groom Richard and Helen Morrison. No explanation needed. I should have known they'd find out. Things like that don't stay quiet forever. 3 months before the wedding, my phone buzzed while I was at work. Unknown number. I ignored it. It buzzed again. Then a third time. Finally, a message came through. Is this Ethan? I stared at the screen for a second, then locked it. Didn't need to ask who it was. A few minutes later, another message. This is your sister. We need to talk. I didn't respond. Blocked the number. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. A week later, my mom called. 5 times in a row. I let every call go to voicemail. Then came the text. Why didn't you tell us you're getting married? We're your family. Call me back. I read it once, then deleted it. 3 years of silence. No birthdays, no holidays. No acknowledgement that I existed. And now, they remembered. I didn't feel angry. That part had burned out a long time ago. What was left was something quieter. Distance. Claire found me later that night sitting on the back steps. Phone in my hand. You okay? She asked. My family reached out, I said. She didn't ask which one. Want to answer? She asked. No, that was enough. She sat next to me. Didn't push? Then don't, she said. I nodded. That should have settled it. It didn't. 2 days later, someone knocked on my door, mid-afternoon. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened it without thinking. That was a mistake. My mom was standing there. She looked older, tired, but the expression was the same. Disapproval before anything else. Ethan. I didn't move. What are you doing here? I asked. She stepped inside, without waiting for an answer. What am I doing here? She repeated. What are you doing getting married without telling your own mother? I closed the door slowly. We haven't spoken in 3 years, I said. And whose fault is that? She snapped. I didn't answer. She looked around the apartment. Photos on the shelf. Me and Claire. Me and the Morrisons. Holidays. Trips. Moments she wasn't part of. Who are these people? She asked. My family, I said. Her expression tightened. I am your family. You were. That stopped her. She turned back to me slowly. Excuse me. You told me not to come home, I said. And then you didn't call. Not once. That was one Thanksgiving. It wasn't. She opened her mouth, then closed it. "You're still upset about that?" she asked. "I'm not upset. I said that was true." I moved on. She crossed her arms. "Well, I want an invitation." No. The word came out flat, immediate. She blinked. "What? You heard me." I walked to the door and opened it. "You don't get to disappear for 3 years and then show up like nothing happened." Her voice sharpened. "I'm your mother." "Not anymore," I said. Silence for a second. It looked like she didn't know what to say. Then her face hardened. "This isn't over," she said. "It is for me." I stepped aside, holding the door open. She didn't move right away, just stood there, looking at me like she was trying to find the version of me that used to back down. He wasn't there. After a few seconds, she walked out, didn't say goodbye. I closed the door behind her, locked it, and that was it. Or at least that's what I thought. The morning of the wedding was quiet, clear sky, warm light coming through the windows of the suite. Napa Valley looked exactly the way people expect it, to rows of vineyards stretching out in every direction. Everything calm, controlled, like nothing could go wrong there. Inside, it was the same. No chaos, no rushing. Claire stood by the window while Helen adjusted something on her dress. Richard was in the corner, pretending to check his watch more than necessary. I stood near the mirror, straightening my jacket for the 3rd time. "You're good," Richard said without looking up. "You've been good for the last 10 minutes. I nodded once, stopped adjusting it. "You ready?" Helen asked Claire. Claire glanced at me, then back at her. Yeah, that was all. No speeches, no nerves spilling over, just a moment that had already settled into place. The ceremony was exactly what it needed to be, simple, direct. Richard stood next to me at the front, steady as always. When the music shifted, and Claire walked down the aisle with him, everything else dropped out. No noise, no movement, just that. She reached me, and Richard gave a small nod before stepping back. No big gesture, didn't need one. We said our vows, kept them short, meant them. When I put the ring on her finger, something locked in, not new, not sudden, just confirmed. Like the last piece of something that had been building for years. The officiant said the words. We didn't wait. It was done. The reception picked up quickly. Music, conversations, people moving between tables. Everything felt lighter after that. For a while, I didn't think about anything outside of that room. Didn't need to. Then one of the security guys came up beside me. Quiet, professional. "Mr. Morrison," he said. "There are 2 people at the entrance. They're asking for you." I already knew. Who? Claire asked. "My parents," I said. She didn't react right away. "Then, do you want them here?" I looked across the room. Richard and Helen at the head table, talking, relaxed. The people who showed up, the people who stayed. Then I looked back at the guard. "Let them in," I said. Claire turned to me slightly. "You sure?" "I'm sure." This wasn't about avoiding it. It wasn't about control. It was about letting it play out exactly as it was. "Put them in the back," I added, "not at the family tables." The guard nodded and left. A few minutes later, I saw them, near the entrance. My mom first standing too straight, scanning the room like she was trying to understand where she fit. My dad just behind her. Same posture I remembered, hands in his pockets, shoulders slightly forward, already uncomfortable. No one recognized them. No one paid attention. To everyone else in that room, they were just 2 people who didn't belong. That part landed. The MC stepped up to the microphone. "All right," he said, tapping the glass lightly. "If I could get everyone's attention for a second." The room quieted. Conversation slowed, then stopped. "Before we move on," he continued, "we'd like to recognize some very important people here tonight." I didn't look at my parents. Didn't need to. I already knew where this was going. "Please join me in welcoming the parents of the groom." A small pause. Then Richard and Helen Morrison. The room broke into applause. Not polite. Real. People stood, cheered, glasses raised. At the head table, Richard and Helen stood up. No hesitation, no confusion, just recognition. They waved, smiled, took it in without overplaying it. Exactly the way they always did things. Across the room, everything else stopped. I turned slightly. My mom hadn't moved. Her expression didn't change right away. It took a second. Then it hit, not confusion, understanding, complete, immediate. She looked from them to me, to the program in someone's hand nearby, putting it together. My dad didn't say anything. He just stood there, staring, like he was trying to catch up to something that had already happened. My mom started walking, fast, cutting through the room, without looking at anyone else. She stopped a few feet in front of me. "What is this?" she asked. Not loud, sharp, controlled. "My parents," I said. Her face tightened. "No, I was adopted 2 years ago." That landed harder than anything else. She took a step back. "You can't do that." I did. My dad finally spoke. "Ethan," I didn't look at him. "You don't get to replace us," she said. "I didn't replace you," I said. "You left. That's not what happened." "It is." The room had gone quiet again. People weren't pretending not to watch anymore. They were watching. I'm still your mother, she said. Not in any way that matters, I answered. No anger, no escalation. Just a fact. She looked around the room, suddenly aware of where she was standing, of who was seeing this. This is humiliating, she said. Then leave. That was it. No follow-up, no explanation. My dad stepped forward slightly. Ethan, he said again. I finally looked at him, for the first time since they walked in. I should have said something back then, he said. I didn't respond. I know, he added. That was all he got. Richard moved up beside me, didn't say anything at first, just stood there. Then, calmly, it's time for you to go, he said. Not raised. Didn't need to be. My mom looked at him like she wanted to argue, then didn't. Security stepped in. No scene, no struggle, just movement. They were escorted out the same way they came in, quietly. The door closed behind them. The room stayed still for a second. Then someone clapped. Another joined. Then the whole room. Not loud at first, then louder. Not for what happened, for what it meant. I didn't look at the door again. Didn't need to. I turned back to Claire. She was already looking at me. Good, she asked. Yeah, that was it. No wait left. No second thoughts. Just done. The music came back. People moved again. The night picked up where it left off. And for the first time, nothing from before followed me into it. They didn't get far. I saw them through the glass doors, security guiding them down the stone path toward the parking area. My mom was still talking. Couldn't hear the words. Didn't need to. I stepped outside. The air was cooler than before, quieter. They stopped when they saw me. For a second, no one spoke. Then she started again. You really did this, she said. You replaced your own family. I didn't replace anything. I said. I stopped waiting. That's the same thing. It's not. My dad stood a few steps behind her. Not interrupting this time. Not disappearing either. Just there. You think they're your real family now? She asked. They show up. I said. That's enough. Her expression shifted. Less anger. More disbelief. After everything we've done for you, I nodded once. That's the problem. Silence. She didn't understand that answer. She never would. You don't get it, she said. Family isn't something you choose. It is, I replied. She shook her head. No, it's not. It's blood. It's obligation. I looked at her for a second, then said it. You didn't choose me. That landed. No defense, no interruption. They did, I added, nodding back toward the building. A pause. Long enough for it to settle. And I chose them. My dad exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding that in for years. My mom just stared at me. You're making a mistake, she said. Maybe, I answered, but it's mine. Another silence. Nothing left to argue. Nothing left to fix. I stepped back. You should go. This time, she didn't resist, didn't push past it. She turned. My dad hesitated for half a second, then followed. They walked to the car without looking back. I watched until the door closed. Then I turned around, didn't stay out there, didn't think about it again. Everything that needed to be said had already been said. The next morning, my phone started lighting up. Different numbers, names I hadn't seen in years, cousins, aunts, people who'd been around just enough to have opinions. Never enough to actually show up. I didn't open most of them. Didn't need to. I knew what they'd say. Family is family. You went too far. Your parents didn't deserve that. I deleted them as they came in. No replies. No explanations. There wasn't anything left to explain. Claire found me on the balcony of the suite, leaning against the railing, phone in my hand. Fallout, she asked. Something like that. She stepped beside me, glanced at the screen once, then looked away. You going to answer any of them? No. That was the end of that conversation. Later that afternoon, one message got through. My aunt, my dad's sister, someone I barely heard from growing up. I opened it. I heard what happened. I just want you to know. I'm proud of you. I read it twice. I should have said something years ago. I didn't. That's on me, but you deserved better. I didn't type right away. Didn't overthink it either. Thanks. I sent back. That was enough. By the time we got back from the honeymoon, I cleaned it up, blocked numbers, removed contacts, closed the door properly this time. Not out of anger, just clarity. That night, back home, I sat on the back steps while the house settled into quiet. Claire came out, sat next to me. You good? She asked. I looked out at the yard. Still, no noise. Yeah, I said, and for the first time it wasn't something I had to convince myself of. A year later, everything looked different, not dramatically, just settled. Claire and I bought a house outside the city. Nothing flashy. 2 floors, a small yard, close enough to Richard and Helen that Sunday dinners didn't require planning. That part never changed. Every week, same table, same rhythm, people showing up without needing a reason. Work changed too. I wasn't bouncing between freelance jobs anymore. Landed a full-time role at a design firm. Steady hours, steady pay, something I didn't have to fight to keep. Claire was doing well at her firm too. Long hours sometimes, but she liked it. We built things, individually, together. And then we had a kid, a daughter. 6 months old by the time the next Thanksgiving came around. Small, quiet, always watching. The first time Helen held her, she didn't say anything for a while, just looked at her, then nodded once, like something had been confirmed. Richard didn't even try to hide it. He cried. That year, Thanksgiving was at our place, not planned as a big thing. It just happened that way. The house filled up early. Noise, movement, people carrying things in, without asking where they should go. Kids running through rooms like they'd mapped the place already. Same chaos, different setting. I stood in the kitchen for a minute, just watching it. No tension. No waiting for something to go wrong. No feeling like I had to manage anything. Claire moved past me, handing something off to Helen. They didn't need to say much. It just worked. Richard was outside with the grill, arguing with Daniel about something that didn't matter. Everyone had a place. No one had to earn it later, when things settled and people sat down. I took my daughter and walked out to the back porch. Cold air, quiet, same time of year, different life. Claire joined me a minute later, wrapping a blanket around both of us. You thinking about it? She asked. Yeah. She didn't ask what, didn't need to. I used to think this was something you had to be given, I said. What is this? I nodded back toward the house. She followed the movement with her eyes, then looked back at me. And now I think you build it, I said. Simple, no explanation needed, inside. I could hear voices again, laughter, someone dropping something, someone else reacting, like it mattered more than it did. Normal, consistent, real. I looked down at my daughter. She shifted slightly, then settled back in. You don't have to figure it out the hard way, I said quietly, not to Claire, to her. We went back inside. No hesitation, no second thought, just where we belonged. Some people spend their whole lives trying to earn a place that was never meant for them. I did, for years. I thought if I adjusted enough, said less, expected less, stayed out of the way, it would eventually make a difference. It didn't. Because the problem wasn't how I showed up, it was where I was showing up. Family isn't blood, it is an obligation. It isn't people who share your name, but treat you like you're optional. It's consistency. It's the people who show up without being asked. The ones who don't disappear when it's inconvenient. The ones who don't make you earn basic respect. If you've been told you're too much, too difficult, too sensitive, too dramatic, take a step back and ask who benefits from you believing that. Because most of the time, it's not you. You don't need to shrink to fit into a place that was never built for you. You can build your own. That's not revenge. It's just necessary. If this story meant something to you, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And tell me, have you ever had to walk away from your own family to build something better? This story is a fictional narrative inspired by common family dynamics and is intended for entertainment and reflection purposes only.